What's good, my man of society? It is your host with the most, Shadow Loke, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Now, what we wanted to discuss today was actually something that I was asked, right? Which was, why do I think that the protests are dying down, right? And that what exactly is people looking to accomplish, or what, do these protests even do anything, right? Or is it just a bunch of waste of time? And that they thought that more people would be out there, meaning as in Hispanics. uh, you know Seeing how many Hispanics that there is in California, that they would figure that there would have been more people out there protesting this whole immigration thing, right? And first, I'm gonna start off by saying, I'm not an advocate, right? I'm just an individual here to shed my opinions from subscribers that are asking me the questions, right? So that's all we're merely doing here. And two, this is not a Raza issue. This is not a Mexican issue. This is a immigration issue, right? So it affects, multiple, ethnicities, Asians, Russians, Canadians, Europeans, you know, South Americans, Mexicans. So it affects a lot of people, not just Raza. So it's not just a Raza issue or a brown issue against, ICE in America. Now, why do I feel like the protests are dying down? Well, there's people still protesting, right? But just not as much as they were in the beginning, right? Remember, um, a lot of people react on emotions, right? Especially when something barely happens, right? A lot of people are, in their feelings, right? And it's why you get the outrage that you get, right? In any protest against anything, right? Emotions are high. That's why you get a lot of clashes and a whole lot of people, not really much talking, right? And more of just, yelling and, shit, destruction, chaos, right? That's what happens when people, emotions get the best of them. But it's understandable. Now, I feel like because of the protests dying down, right? It's, people are now, letting it all sink in, right? And not only that, but bills still got to get paid, and people still got to go to work. So it's not like people could be protesting there all the time, right? It's not like people could be out there, until this matter gets fixed. And now, do the protests even fix anything, right? Or is it just a waste of time? Now, protests do fix things, right? Just not how people expect them, or not what people expect, right? People are not protesting out there and expecting for the immigration to now start releasing individuals, right? But this is to let the governments, the ones in charge, letting them know that the people are not satisfied with what's happening here. They're not okay with it. They're not cool with how things are transpiring, or how people are going about matters, right? So it lets these individuals know that the people are not happy. Now, people could be like, well, why these individuals are not going to care? Why should they care? No, governments do care about what the people think, right? They don't want to get them all hyped up, because then shit could go south, right? So they do start to worry about how shit is happening, or what shit is happening, right? So it now gets them thinking twice about how they go about matters, or about the moves that they're making, because it's costing a lot of money, and it's a lot of law enforcement, and a whole lot of things are happening, right? So government starts to now think about their moves, right? So it does change people's perspective in that matter. Not only that, but there's certain individuals that voted for Trump that are not happy with what he's doing, right? And are upset. So it now flipped their perspective, right, on how they view the matter. Now seeing families torn apart, and yada yada yada, right? So it does help push the message in that way, right? And it shows people are coming in and uniting over this topic and over the injustice, and not down with how Trump is going about things, considering his parade had low numbers, and the No Kings protest had the biggest numbers of all time, right? So that already shows where the people are at with these decisions um, that are affecting a lot of people. Now, why isn't there more brown people protesting out there, right? Considering the numbers that there is of brown people here in California, it's because, unlike any other protest group that has ever been out there, right? Whether it was the LTBG, or whether it was the brothers, the injustice, or whatever group it was, right? But the whole point is that whenever there's been any type of protest here in America, these other protest group had the luxury of not having to worry about getting deported. compared to these individuals. If they're out there and they get detained, most likely they're getting deported, right? So, these people never had to worry about getting deported or nothing like that, considering that they're, in America, right? Meaning brothers or whites or, any of those groups, right? But these individuals don't have that luxury, considering that, they're illegals, right? Not only that, but let's say somebody who's out there protesting, who, let's say they're born here, right? But their family or their, they come from other countries, right? People are afraid that now by you going out there and protesting, right, that you're now bringing attention to yourself, right? So they say they detain you, right, and they get your information, your address, and now they might go to your house and actually pick up your relatives, right? People are worried about that, bringing attention to, their household and coming and actually picking up their family members, So a lot of things are at stake, and and it's the reason why a lot of people stay silent or are scared to go out there and protest, because they don't want to get deported. So that's the reason why you don't see as many people out there protesting, like you should, right? Is because these individuals are worried about getting deported, right? Because, like I said, they don't have the luxury of like these other groups where they wouldn't have to worry about that. They'll get detained and released, but these individuals have to worry about that, and have to worry about them now going to their pads and picking up their loved ones, right? Assuming that there's illegals there, and people can't say, well, they can't do that. No, this president and his group, they are doing whatever the fuck. They're not going by the books. They're doing whatever the fuck they want. And we have seen it time and time again that these individuals are breaking laws in order to, do whatever they feel like they got to do. And then worry about the consequences later. But by then, if these individuals are deported, what does that even matter? Right? So you do have that, so that's why I feel like, you don't see as big of a group, as you would, like, let's say, with any other group. But because people don't have the luxury of not having to worry about getting deported, that's why this is a tough subject, right? And some other people realize that, right? And that's why they take to the streets and protest in behalf of them, meaning like other ethnicities, which is actually pretty cool to see. But overall, that's just my opinion on the overall matter, right? On why I feel like, there's not as many people out there, right? And does protest even, do anything? And it does, But that's just my opinion. You can have yours. You can disagree. It's all fine and dandy. You know what I mean? I'm just merely here giving my opinion. That's it. That's all it is. But what are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments. If Shadow, we out.